show you where it is. It's right up here at the north end of the property, across the street there. You see all of those fire rescue vehicles, and that's where the largest group of people that we saw being treated. Now again, we're not sure how many people actually have been shot and how many people may have suffered injuries fleeing from the scene, people falling down, stepping over one another. But we counted, I think we counted 8 here at this location that we were able to see. Now there may have been others that were treated before we got here, but that's what we've been able to, we provided video of that part of the incident here. We'll bring the camera back out from that command post there. You see a couple of school buses that have arrived and are stationed right there. And this is the building again that we're talking about, and it's obviously the area of concentration right now for not only the SWAT team, but for all of us here, for the parents and for the students here. They're trying to make a determination as to exactly how well armed or how armed this suspect is. Again, this is all information that's coming to us in a very fluid situation, and we always caution our viewers that when we're doing live television like this, we don't know exactly how it's going to unfold, and you want to prepare yourself for anything that could happen here live. Well, they were developing information as we were flying up here of exactly where they needed to cordon off, what areas they wanted to cordon off, and it was from this area here where I believe that there's either a gymnasium or an auditorium, and then the regular outbuildings of the school there with the I can't think of what that's called there, but that little center area, the courtyard. Thank you so much. And then they immediately, or maybe 5 minutes into the investigation, they said, no, we've got to go a little bit farther north. We've got information that this is the building that we want to concentrate on. And they're pretty much have this area secured from the outside. And of course, as we said earlier, they're going to be making entry at some point and securing each floor by floor, room by room. And we're just going to have to kind of stay with this and monitor and see exactly how this unfolds. Go ahead. Thank you, Jay. Thank you. Okay. Let's go to east side of this building. Yeah, I know we're going to the east side. I need to get on the air here. Hello, hello. Let me, if you can hear me, Yeah. Just moments ago over the radio, they hailed that there were a group of students that were inside that had been secured in a building. They were going to be exiting out of the east side of the building, and they would be running. They would be looking for them running through the parking lot over towards Pine Island Road there on the east side of the property. And sure enough, by the time we swung the camera around to this area here, we could see them coming out and flowing, running at full speed, both boys and girls, young boys and girls, across the parking lot out of this portion of the building. Now, we're hearing some other information, and we're just waiting for confirmation, trying to get confirmation on it, but they're identifying the shooter, giving the suspects saying that he's wearing a black hat, a maroon-colored or burgundy-colored shirt, black pants, and he was seen in the area of the west side of this building. We are now looking at the east side. This is where one of the SWAT teams brought over a vehicle called the Bearcat there, one of their armored vehicles that they use in these special response type situations here, and it is now on the east side. So we've got one on the east and we've got one on the west of this building. It still seems the main area that the police department officials are concentrating on. So all those students that got out are now across the roadway here. I don't know if we're going to be able to turn that video around, but they ran across the roadway here past this line of police cars and civilian vehicles. And then, okay, we're going to go ahead and take a look at that. We'll show you that video of the students coming out of that building there and running across the parking area there. So, I'm told that it's going to be coming up here momentarily. So, there it is. There you're going to see right there in that corner of the shot there. You can see the students there coming out of that eastern entrance to that building, that three-story building that the police department is focusing on here. One after another, they ran across the parking lot area there and are safely now off the school property. Come back. We're just going to keep our camera trained right here for right now because there seems to be a little bit more activity around this area. There are two canine officers here with their dogs, and they have already gone around the perimeter of the we got another officer running into the secondary building here now, so there's maybe something else developing. So we're just going to stay with this and provide you with the pictures. If I go off mic for a couple of minutes here, I can probably gather a little bit more information. Sure. I would assume that they are. We haven't heard anything specifically. We had a few minutes of startup time from the time the call went out where we were off the radio channel. So that's usually the first thing they do. Even if it's just a report of shots being fired in the area, they notify the school administrators immediately to put the schools on lockdown. And then they say they would probably update them on a 5 or 10 minute interval. Take a look there. Yeah, these are more kids that are being escorted out. These out of the western side of the building there. You can see them still filing out from that 3-story building. Again, we indicated earlier that when the school does go on lockdown, the police, when they do go in, they go door to door there and make sure that each room is secure. And what they're doing now is they're doing accountability here for all the students and the faculty that are still inside the school here. And you can see that they come out with their hands raised above their heads there. Now the officer's instructing them exactly where to go. Obviously feeling a little bit more secure here outside of the building. JC, we can stay through the top of the 4. Okay. Go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah. They have less fuel, so they should go first. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. No, we'll go back. Okay.
Authorities are walking the kids out, and our local station, WSVN 7 in South Florida, is covering it live. Craig Stevens on the desk, a reporter on scene. Let's listen.
I'm going to try to talk with ma'am. I'm a student on the Channel 7, and I want to speak with you about what occurred. Some of these students, I understand, were too taking up the shop. Were you inside the school? What? Yeah.
We apologize for the connection. We've just gotten new word from the Broward County Sheriff's Office. 20 to 50 people have been injured. We don't know how many of those have been shot or if they might have been injured in some other way, in a rush to escape, or in ways that the authorities have not yet explained to us. So the latest from the Broward County Sheriff's Office in South Florida is 20 to 50 people injured. Again, our local station, 7 News, Fox for South Florida, is covering it live. Let's listen.
It was a normal fire drill like that. Normally we keep one every month, and we were just assuming it's that one. But then a second drill went off in my class, and we just all assumed that it was a normal drill. But as we were walking out, we started hearing like pop shots, and no one seemed to be worried at that point. People thought that it was just nothing like an intense drill. They told us about a drill before where they were going to be shooting blanks. So we heard the shots like, hey, it's just that joke. But then, it's not.
How did you get out of the school safely?
We took the back route across Westlake, single file line through the woods, and about it. Everyone's here now. Each school is like sector zone. We're all assigned to like a certain zone, so we all walk off to.
Are you high school students?
Yes, high school students. And usually in the zone, you go there and line up, but then we got pushed Westlake, and they kept going past Westlake, so we knew something was wrong by then.
And what are they telling students now? Because it seems like a little chaotic at this point, which is understandable considering circumstances. But what are school administrators telling you guys?
They're not telling us much. They're not telling us that they don't really know for sure, but some administrators don't know at all, the ones that I've asked, and they're just trying to focus on getting every student out as fast as quickly.
They spoke with your parents? They know you're okay?
Yeah, my parents are already here. They rushed over here. Even my coaches from, like, Cardinal Gibbons, like, hospitals all in Fort Lauderdale were texting me, asking if they already knew right away. And, yeah, that's how it got.
I'm glad you're safe. Okay.
And Brandon, stand by for me one moment as we continue to watch these live pictures from 7 Skyforce, and we have seen these large groupings of students come out of that building right there on the campus of Marjory Stoneman. We saw one group running out, a couple of others walking out with their hands up as police, a number of departments try to clear those students one by one and clear this scene. But Coral Springs police tweeting out a few moments ago for people who are inside the building following this situation, they want people, faculty and staff and students to remain in place until police can clear the building. Well, we're getting another tweet just a few moments ago here into the Newsplex, and this is from apparently a student inside the building. That student saying, quote, "The school is not totally evacuated. I'm locked in my classroom, and I heard shouting right outside a few minutes ago." So that just gives you an idea, that dialogue right there, that tweet, that this is still a very active and fluid situation unfolding right now on this high school campus.
And I think that's to Ralph's point earlier, and this is why law enforcement, they do this grid search, room by room, space by space. And as they're able to secure parts of the campus, this happens. They let people leave, and then there are parts of the campus that are still not secure from their point of view, and that is why there is the requirement that faculty, staff, students remain on lockdown. I think we have Vanessa Medina. She's there, and we actually have her on camera now to add a little more. Vanessa, remind us again just how far you are or how close you are to the school campus at this point.
I'm about less than a half a mile from the actual school, but let me just show you how much police presence is here. If we can go back here, Scott, I'm showing them how much police presence. We've got Fort Lauderdale, Coral Springs, Broward Sheriff's deputies in the corner over there. We've got parents. You can see parents arriving here trying to figure out exactly where their child is. But deputies and police officers have been arriving. We just saw the command post, the SWAT team command post, just drive through here and set up a spot closer to the school. So we are on exactly Coral Ridge Drive here, and Holmberg is the cross street. But you can see just how many SWAT team deputies and how many police officers are out here. This is a Walmart here, so they had to make sure that this scene here, this area here at this Walmart was clear, so they sent officers in there just to make sure that this was a safe area. But we've got deputies all down this road that have come in to
As the reporter speaks on scene, we've just gotten an urgent dispatch from the Parkland, Florida Police Department. Parkland is the town in the Coral Springs area. The county is Broward, and this is the alert. The sheriff from Broward County says this school shooter is still at large. This is still an active shooter situation. Whether he is on campus or whether he is left with some students, as was earlier reported but not confirmed by Fox News, is not yet known. This is local coverage from Channel 7 News, WSVN in South Florida, the news station, the Fox station. Let's listen.
Parents are not hearing from their child. Can we ask you a quick question? We're with Channel 7. Did you hear anything?
No, my friends did.
What are your friends telling you?
They said they heard a shot. One of my friends said that a girl from his class was shot.
And where were you when this all happened?
In my classroom. I was really nearby the exit.
And you're hearing this happen in the freshman building is what we're hearing?
Yeah.
And what are your friends saying? Are they still inside of the school?
No, all my friends were able to evacuate.
Now, as a parent, this has got to be the most frightening
It's very
thing.
frightening. I was coming here to pick her up, and I still have my son that is on Westglade,
Westglade.
Westglade Middle School.
Is he still there?
He's still
They're on
there.
lockdown.
Yeah, I tried to call him, and then the teacher got the phone, and then he said that everything's okay, but they're still locked up for till they feel that it's safe to go out. So I still have a son over there on the middle school.
As a parent, as a father, it's hit Parkland.
You never think that it's going to happen to you. You know, the things that you see on the movies, and all of a sudden you see on the middle of everything, and then it's very sad. It's very sad because, you know, you still don't know what's going on inside there. And I'm happy because my daughter is here, my son is okay, but I'm very, upset
Sad
for the parents that still have their kids inside.
Very fluid situation out here. Again, we are hearing from parents who are walking up that their child is still at Westglade and they are on lockdown. You can see some of these undercover officers and deputies still pouring in. Again, as we were driving in, we were on the Sawgrass Expressway and they have it completely blocked off because you can see a clear pathway to the second story of Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School. So we've got Broward Sheriff's deputies coming from Dana Beach all over, cross county, coming out here to this very active scene out here. When we tried to get in another direction, one of the fire rescue told us there that it was just too much of an active scene to let us get any closer to this school. So they have created a perimeter to keep everyone out here safe, and the students that are there, they're trying to contain the situation. But that's the very latest out here. Of course, guys, we'll keep you posted.
And by way of active scene, and this might sort of be obvious, but the AP is quoting the sheriff as saying the high school shooter is still at large. That's what we mean by active scene, that while portions of this campus are secure, and in those cases where it can be safely done, students and others are being allowed to leave, but in others they are not, because they do not at this point in time have the culprit for this in custody. That effort continues.
And it's been a few minutes since we checked in with Ralph. Ralph, we had a brief description of who this active shooter may be.
Ralph is Ralph Rayburn up in the chopper. Let's listen.
Coming in that he was on the second floor. Can you kind of brief us on that? What do you, any new information, you know, on that front?
Yes, the most recent thing that I can tell you is that they have identified someone. We're not going to put the person's name out on the air at this time because we want to get it corroborated. But they have identified the person of interest who is a student who was in class today earlier, and they're trying to make contact now. They have his home address, they know where he works, and they're putting together all this information now as they continue to go through classroom after classroom of this three-story standalone building here on the north side of the property at Marjory Stoneman Douglas. We now have our third SWAT vehicle that has arrived out here on the scene. We watched as those interviews were being conducted earlier, and the reporters were reporting there that we saw at least 100 students, some 100 students come out of that building with their arms raised and are now in safe haven off the property. There are school buses that hold on one second. There are school buses that are just off the property. Students are being assigned to certain buses, and everyone is going to be checked before anybody leaves the premises. As far as this investigation goes, to get any more amplifying information as to exactly where this person of interest may be, whether he's still on the property or whether he was able to get outside of the school property before the perimeter was set up here. So again, the school on lockdown, at least 20 people injured. We know that at least one person was shot. We haven't gotten any other confirmations. Broward County put out a mass casualty incident, a level 3. A level 3 means that there are at least 20 to 22, I believe, people injured. They have notified all the area hospitals all around in this area, and down a little bit down to the south, and actually up into West Palm, finding out who has beds available and who can take patients and treat patients, so that it's done very quickly and efficiently. So that's the latest information we have for you. We're going to go off mic here for a couple of minutes, and then we'll get back with you again.
Ralph Rayburn in the chopper above the scene with new information to all of us that they believe they know who the culprit is. They believe they know who the shooter is. According to Ralph Rayburn, who's I know him well, and he's very well plugged in with local authorities there, he's being told that The authorities know where he lives, that they're searching for him. They don't know if the shooter is still on campus or has left the campus before the perimeter was set up. They've called in authorities from hither and yon and have notified the hospitals to the north and south of them that this is a mass casualty incident. The sheriff's office telling Fox News that 20 to 50 people have been injured. These are live pictures coming to us. Craig Stevens on the anchor desk in South Florida. Let's listen to their local coverage.
You see in school facilities for active shooter situations. So we know that there are protocols in place. We can only hope that they're being implemented effectively today to maximize the safety of everybody inside that complex, those especially who are still on lockdown inside that complex. I think, Matt, you said a little while ago we have a picture from inside the school building. This might have been a student in a classroom this day and age where everybody is outfitted with a smartphone, if for no other reason to keep in touch with their mom and dad. This is a chilling scene. It's a shot from the floor of a classroom, from the point of view perhaps of under a desk while this got underway.
And having covered these stories before, we've talked to teachers, faculty, and staff on the flip side of these school shootings, and they go through training, faculty does, and students do as well, working hand in hand with faculty to learn what to do in the classroom when a situation like this starts to unfold. If the active shooter is not in the classroom, they're taught to barricade that door that leads out into the hallway of schools. So you can only imagine that these students and these teachers are tapping into what they have learned from training that they have gained, throughout these active shootings and those discussions. So Vanessa Medina on the ground. I believe, Vanessa, you're in the Walmart Supercenter parking lot, which is not far away from the high school.
No, we're less than a half a mile from the school. We have Sebastian out here who heard the gunshot. Sebastian, what did you hear?
Just shots. Like all of a sudden, we were all in our classrooms just minding our own business, and all of a sudden just 3 shots happened, and then everyone just started freaking out.
And people running
and everyone was we all thought it was a fire drill because we had one previously today, and we thought it was that, so no one was that nervous. But then when word started going around that it was shots and not just like something else, then everyone just started running towards the canal.
And you started running with people around you.
Yeah.
How scary is what's going on?
I mean, I wasn't scared until now. Tell us about that.
This is a fluid situation. There's a lot of hearsay going on. They believe that they know who the shooter is. They're going back and forth again with a lot of hearsay, but we're also hearing, we had one mom run across us and tell us that one teacher protecting the students may have passed. But again, this is a fluid situation. You can see police out here, and they're trying to make sure that the students that are coming out of the school are, of course, safe. We have Coral Springs Police out here, Fort Lauderdale, BSO. We've got so many agencies from Dade and Broward out here. We've seen several SWAT teams go in with full active gear on. Again, students coming out telling us they do know who this student is. Another student just came out, you'll have to excuse me, saying that a teacher possibly could have passed. But again, this is all information that's coming out, and just like anything, it's a fluid situation, and we have not confirmed any of this information. So if you're a parent and you're watching this, and hopefully you can get on the phone with your child and confirm some of this information. But there are students who have come out, and they're okay. Ralph is above, of course, grabbing all the pictures from above us, but this is out here on Holmberg and Coral Ridge Drive.
We've just gotten word that police have notified all area hospitals all around this school that they should all expect to receive students. We work with a number of stations there. WSVN is further reporting that the police have identified a person of interest who is a student and was said to have been in class earlier today at this very high school. It's the reporting of WSVN, our South Florida station, that student is, quote, on the run. Authorities say that this is an active shooter situation, that they're still searching for the shooter. Ralph Rayburn, who's in the helicopter up above, has reported that police believe they know exactly who this person is and where this person lives. But at this moment, to our knowledge, they have not located this person. It's 32 minutes past 3 o'clock in South Florida, where the chopper is above a school, Marjorie Stoneman Douglas School in the town of Parkland, near Coral Springs in Broward County, north of Miami, and that's where this school shooting happened. The police tell us 20 to 50 people have been injured in one way or another, and all area hospitals have been notified that they should expect to receive casualties on some level from the school. We've been listening into live local coverage from our station WSVN7 in South Florida. A student who was there, let's listen.
In hand to deal with the situation, the FBI, from what we're hearing from our producer upstairs, is on scene, just arriving a few moments ago. So they will check in with Coral Springs Police, Fire, BSO, among other agencies that are there on scene, but the FBI just arriving there a few months ago.
If this rises to a certain level, this will become the FBI become the lead investigation or the lead agency involved in this. But we're not quite at that point yet. We had a young man in front of the camera. Is that a live interview? Do we have that? Is that Vanessa? She had a young man in front of the camera.
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Ralph, hang on one sec.
Sure thing.
For people to go ahead and lead up to it.
Tell us, you were telling me, you're talking about, you believe that the alleged shooter, you don't have to say his name, but tell us what you know about him.
He's been a troubled kid, and he'd always had like a certain amount of, issues going on. He shot guns because he felt that it gave him, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? An exhilarating feeling. I don't know
how did you know about his guns?
He showed me personally through his phone and stuff like that. I stayed clear of him most of the time during my time in alternate school. I didn't want to be with him at all because I felt as though I didn't want to cause any conflict with him because that's the impression he gave off. You
were in alternative school with him?
Yes, I actually got kicked out my junior year and then went into an alternative school, OCLC. And that's where I met him again after getting kicked out my junior year, meeting him there.
How old is he?
He's older than me. He was 19 when I was 17, so he's probably 20 now, 21.
So you're hearing this through friends?
Forgive the interruption, but what we don't know, what we don't want to do is misidentify anyone. We're going to go with what we've heard from police. Imagine being at a school, there's been all this chaos, and students say this and students say that, and this student may be 100% exactly right, but he could also be wrong. So we're going to wait for the authorities to tell us exactly who this person is. Here's what they've said so far. They've said so far to the locals that they know who this person is. They have a person of interest. They've said that this person of interest was a student who had earlier in the day been inside that school. They've said that this person of interest is not yet apprehended. They've said that 20 to 50 students or 20 to 50 people have been injured in one way or another. They've told local hospitals, all of them, to expect or to be prepared at least for casualties from this school. And we have 3 local stations with whom we work there. Our local station, CBS 4 for South Florida, is reporting as many as 40 students and a teacher are locked inside a closet inside that high school and that they have made contact. WPLG, which is the ABC station in South Florida, is now reporting on a word from parents. A mother said, "My daughter is locked in the auditorium now. My daughter texted me," and I quote, "Mom, you stay safe, stay away." She said she's scared and she heard the gunshot. She said, "Mom, I don't want to go to school tomorrow." Another mother, "My daughter texted me she's okay. She's still inside her classroom. The teacher locked the door and they're huddled in the back of the classroom. She's terrified, but I'm thankful she's able to text." They're doing exactly what the authorities told them to do, and that is barricade yourselves inside the school. And now students are being brought out by authorities, hands in the air, as has become protocol. WSVN 7 covering this. Ralph Rayburn is in the helicopter. Craig Stevens on the anchor desk. Let's listen.
One of the other buildings, it's on that main building where it's attached to the courtyard area that we were showing you earlier, but you're seeing all of these students here and teachers are being escorted here across the roadway. That road that goes from the top to bottom of your screen there, that is Pine Island right there, where all those police officers are set up and up near the command post. One other piece of information we want to share with you that we were able to develop just a short time ago, along with that evacuation that took place, they did find a teacher. I don't want to put the room number out, but they identified the room number where they believe the shooting started, and a teacher who witnessed it, and that teacher is going to be escorted over to the command post to be debriefed by police officers, or the commanding officers on the scene. That's going to happen here in the next couple of minutes.
And Ralph, where are they taking these students and faculty that are being brought out of these buildings? I believe you said earlier possibly buses were being brought up to that scene.
They are, and let me bring the camera way back out here as we watch all those students are now across the roadway there. You see them going right in between a couple of well, what they've done is they've asked them to leave all their book bags here in the middle of the street. I'm sure they're going to be going through those, make sure there's nothing ill going on there. But they're all underneath this line of trees here on the east side of Pine Island right there. That's where they ended up. And then as we bring the camera back out here to the intersection, you can see the mass of humanity and fire rescue personnel along with the police officers. And I would say now that this school here, this Marjory Stoneman Douglas School, which is this school right here in the center of the screen, you see the Sawgrass Expressway in the background, slowdown of traffic there, people up on the highway there looking over. We saw a couple people with binoculars that were looking from up there. There's also some police officers up there just keeping an eye on that southern perimeter of this school here. But again, that shooting taking place, a mass casualty incident where over 20 people were injured. We counted 1 at first, and then we saw 7 more, and we've seen several others, and we're getting indications that there may still be a few people that are injured that are being treated inside the building. We're trying to get more information there. You can see right now we've got personnel coming out of that, and they're loading up on the back of this pickup truck here. But let's see who we got there. Yeah, those are some SWAT members and some other folks right there. So as we overuse that expression, that very active scene here, we're going to go off mic again and try to get you guys a little bit more information. We'll be back
Actually,
shortly.
Ralph, before you go, can I ask you a real quick question? I just want to clarify something, and you may have amplified this point earlier, but you mentioned that the authorities think they've identified the room where this started. That's to suggest that this event continued outside of that classroom.
I can't infer anything by it. I just kind of, I'm doing the echo here where if I hear something and I hear it again, can corroborate it a little bit or see some visual evidence of it, then we go ahead and that's how we do the reporting. I can't take any more out of it than they believe that they have identified a person of interest, and they know that person's name, they know the person's residence, they know where the person works, and they're working now to establish exactly his whereabouts at this hour.
All right, Ralph, we'll let you get back to what you need to do, and we'll check back in as you provide these live pictures of a number of young people, students who have been allowed to leave that facility. Again, where they had been in the building 800, I guess it is, Ralph mentioned. They've secured that section of it, so as they do that, they allow
Forgive the interruption, Craig Stevens and the team in South Florida. We've just gotten word from the police chief. The fire chief, I should say, there locally, the fire chief has told the Miami Herald newspaper that at least 1 person has been killed. We know that, that at least more than 20 and less than 50 have been injured. That's as specific as they have been. And the gunman, at last report from police and authorities, is still missing. Craig Stevens continues.
For some of these law enforcement officers, we are Coral Ridge Drive and Holmberg Road. So one of the main entrances into this high school, into the multiple schools that are located here in Parkland. And Brad, let's pop off the tripod. We can just show them exactly what we're seeing. You're here checking on a student, I can imagine.
My daughter.
You're checking on your daughter. Were you able to make contact with? Is she a high school student, a middle schooler?
She's a sophomore at Douglas.
And when did you first? Did she reach out to you that there was?
She texted me and told me there's an active shooter. Please call 911.
And you obviously did that and then raced her to the school.
And 911 had heard already. And they gave me instructions what to tell her as far as keep the phone off, on vibrator, stay low, make sure the door's locked.
Is she out of the school? Have you been able?
She just walked out. She texted me after about a 25-minute sort of gap of silence.
And then now our own crews have just spoken with this student. Let's listen.
Shocked. I'm shocked.
All right, and what's your name? Spell your first and last name for me.
Megan Hill, Meghan, Hill, Hill.
And how old are you?
I'm 17.
And our producer speaking to a student there. Let's listen.
Very much.
You're welcome.
Your dad?
I'm her dad, yeah.
What'd you think when you got the call or when you heard the news?
I got a text message and thought it was a joke. You know, the kids can play jokes sometimes, and then I could tell right away that it turned serious. And she sent me videos of her crying on the floor, and I saw pictures. They sent me of the people that were shot in the hallway and dead, and it just felt helpless. nothing I could do. I try to get here as quick.
Again, we do not have confirmed reports of multiple people dead. The sheriff's office, I should say the fire department, has told the Miami Herald that there is at least one fatality. Beyond that, we have nothing except 20 to 50 people injured. Local coverage on the ground near the school. Let's listen.
Close to the public. You can see across the street. That's going to be to the west. A large gathering of students that have already cleared, family members, heavy law enforcement presence as well. And as we hear from Ralph, kind of where I'm getting a lot of my details, besides what we're learning here on the ground and from Craig in the studio, talking about a situation where the possibility of this is a shooter's not yet been found. And I think that lends to the what we're seeing here as far as the police cars continuing to be so mobile. They pick up and move in a group of 6 or 8 and just as fast as they can move out, either a northbound or a southbound direction. And obviously we're speculating at this point, but probably checking out these various locations of where this suspect may be, Craig.
All right, Brandon Beyer, thanks so much for that. We're going to get back with you as you are able to cull more from folks as they leave that building. We'll check back with you in a few minutes.
We just saw, Craig, a few moments ago, I picked up on 7 Skyforce as these students were being brought out of the buildings, and this is still happening. We just saw a few moments ago a large stream of students coming out with their hands up. Again, police trying to clear this campus as quickly and efficiently as they can. Saw a stack of backpacks that were starting to line up on the road right there just off campus. So you can imagine that law enforcement from the various departments that are there on scene will be checking through all those backpacks as they try to clear everything, the students and their belongings here today at Marjory Stoneman. I believe Vanessa is on the ground. Vanessa, what do you have for us?
Just tell me what's your name?
I don't want to say.
It's okay. So tell me, where were you? What did you hear?
We were in front of the tennis courts, and we heard the fire alarm, and it was supposed to be just a fire drill. We thought it was just another fire drill because we had another one earlier. But as soon as the fire drill got pulled, the fire alarm got pulled, and kids were evacuating, I heard 5 pops. And I was like, that's not a drill. I was like, and we never did a drill like that. And when we started evacuating towards the back of Westglades, towards the middle school, I knew that it was more than a drill because we've never done that. I graduated. I came back to visit one of my teachers.
So you were just in the worst possible place at the worst possible time today?
Basically.
And so you knew this was not a drill, and what happened around you? Describe to me the students. And
kids were freaking out. Some kids froze. Some kids were on their phones. A lot were on their phones just trying to Snapchat everything because they thought it was a joke, and it wasn't. There's kids freaking out, students freaking out, teachers. It sucked. So.
The worst chaotic scene I can imagine that you've ever seen.
Yeah.
And so did you hear the noises as well? What did you hear?
It was the same as she's described. We had a fire drill this morning, and then at the end of the class, like it was around 2:35, we had another drill, or we had the fire alarm. And as we were getting ready to evacuate, somebody on the intercom said that teachers and students had to evacuate, and I guess that's when I knew something serious was happening. I didn't know if it was a fire or something else, but then after that, we got outside and we heard the pops, like she said, and I knew it was something more than that. Everybody was texting and whatnot, but I think it's more to like keep in contact with everybody, and I don't know if...
What building was this happening in? How close were you, the proximity to that building?
We heard the pops, and we were in the building towards the back of the school, close to the tennis court. And
there could be a possibility that this could be an ex-student, a former student. What are your thoughts?
This is just hearsay, but we heard that it was a current student.
A current student?
Yeah, or somebody that was there and then just decided.
The latest we have from police on this is that they've identified, they have a person of interest who was a student at the school earlier in the day. They're not using the word suspect, but a person of interest who was in the school earlier today. The latest word from the local fire chief to the Miami Herald is that at least one person has been killed, more than 20 and less than 50 injured. Local hospitals have been told to be on the lookout, and the police have told the students to barricade themselves inside. But we've just gotten new word from the Broward County school system that this school is now dismissing students. That's the word they used, dismissing students. So whether the lockdown shelter-in-place order remains in place, the school system is now saying that they're dismissing students. This gunman, according to the authorities, has not yet been located. We don't know whether the gunman is still on campus or has left the campus, but the locals are trying to figure that out, as are the police. WSVN 7's coverage continues.
Officers driving this way, closing streets off on the other side of Holmberg and Coral Ridge Drive, within a mile of this school, has been cornered off there. They do have a perimeter, and they're not allowing anyone in or out of this area as they try to get this.
The perimeter is expanding. We've just gotten word from the governor of the state of Florida, Rick Scott, that he's just spoken with the president and the White House about this shooting at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School in Broward County in South Florida. The governor says, "My thoughts and prayers are with the students, their families, and the entire community. We'll continue to receive briefing from law enforcement and issue updates." Again, that just in from the governor of the state of Florida, as all eyes are on Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School, and authorities are searching for a person of interest who may have been a student in the classroom, inside the classroom earlier in the day. The reporter in the chopper for WSVN, Ralph Rayburn, says that the police have said they've identified the room where this all began, in other words, where the shooting started, and a teacher who was in that classroom has been taken to a nearby area for debriefing by police. That's the latest as we have it. The search continues. Let's listen.
Unless it is an emergency. So again, they are still dealing with this and you know, handling this as an active shooter situation there on the campus of Marjory Stoneman. Ralph Rayburn and 7 Skyforce. Ralph, what's the latest information that you have on the scene?
Ralph, can you hear us? We just had your pictures a couple of minutes ago that seemed to... All right, we might have lost him for a second there. We'll get back. It looks like there was a lot of movement among law enforcement into one of the buildings there, so we'll try to get connected with Ralph just as soon as we can in a couple of minutes there.
All right, I got to punch it in here because I don't know where that is.
Okay, Ralph, you're back up. All right, sorry. Just for folks at home, you might hear some crossing over of different folks talking at the same time. You might hear, for example, Brandon Barr. You might hear Ralph. It's sort of the technology that we work with, so we'll apologize. You don't have to adjust anything where you are. It's just at times you're going to hear a few people at the same time talking as we try to bring you this as it unfolds.
And here you can see these pictures from 7 Skyforce earlier today when they were treating victims who were being brought out from the high school campus. This was the very early stages of this active shooter situation. There you can see fire rescue tending to a victim there at that street corner. At first we had heard that there were 5 people injured in this, 1 transported, 1 gunshot wound to the leg. Then that number was increased to more than 20 victims in this shooting situation on this high school campus. So again, still very fluid, and those numbers will be changing throughout the afternoon as we get more information from these local departments.
I hasten to even use numbers, and I unfortunately had a lot of practice with this over the years, saying that whatever numbers we use now may not be what we end up talking about later on in the day, but as Jeff mentioned, those are the numbers we have from law enforcement at this point in time. I think we have Brandon Beyer, and he has someone else there just outside the school. Brandon?
Well, Craig, Mom just arrived here on the scene. Gina Delatorre, I know you've spoken with a couple. You have 2 children at this high school, and one of, you're telling me a daughter you have is still in a classroom right now, right?
I have 2 boys. I have one son who's a junior. He's in the classroom. He just said they moved him to another. And my other son is a senior, and he is safe in the bank.
What have your sons been able to tell you up to this point?
They said that they know who the child is. His name was Nicholas.
I'm sorry. I'm going to stop you there from using his name.
Okay.
Let the authorities say that. But
I want to interrupt their coverage for just a moment to let you know that a city commissioner there in South Florida has just told another of our affiliated stations, WPLG, which is the ABC station in South Florida and our network news service affiliate. The Coral Springs City Commissioner Dan Daly has told our local station that the suspect is now in custody. He says he was notified about that about 20 minutes ago, but we do not have that officially from the Broward County Sheriff's Office. We do have this. The President of the United States has just tweeted on this matter. President Trump says, and I quote, "My prayers and condolences to the families of the victims of the terrible Florida shooting. No child, teacher, or anyone else should ever feel unsafe in an American school." There are live pictures coming into us from WSVN's chopper, which is up above the scene. This is right off Pine Island Road, I believe it is, in the town of Parkland, and this is above the school. And let's listen in to WSVN.
And our hearts go out to that mom, and we hope for the best for her and her family, but we want to get to something else here.
Ralph Rayburn above another scene connected to this case. Ralph, where are you at right now?
Oh, here's what we're hearing, guys. This is 11735 Northwest 47th Drive. This is about 3/4 of a mile, maybe a little bit more, maybe about 1.5 miles from the scene. Right now, we've got a number of police officers out here. They have the suspect that they were looking for in custody here. They believe they do. They have a couple of witnesses. They're going to be bringing them by over here, and they'll do what they call a little drive-by. They'll let the witnesses take a look at the person of interest, and but he's the clothing description that we gave out earlier. This person was wearing that clothing, and they believe that this person had been online earlier today and last night, looking at a couple of websites, possibly ones that indicate how you could build a bomb. And we're getting confirming that information. But right now, Coral Springs Police, along with other agencies, are out here. Again, our address is 11735 Northwest 47th Drive. I'm going to bring the camera back out here as we and show you the area. There's the school all the way over there. That's the school. That's where all this other stuff was taking place. But they developed information very, very quickly and through records and things like that, and were able to identify a person of interest. That person of interest has been taken into custody at this location. Obviously, we're going to stay over this scene here, get a little bit more information. We'll go off mic here for a couple minutes, and then we'll get back to you. That's our story.
So a person of interest is in custody. The authorities have not said there's an all clear, but they have been evacuating the school, Shepherd Smith in New York, and I do want to tell you that our own Peter Doocy has just spoken with the Florida Senator Bill Nelson, and Bill Nelson has told our correspondent Peter Doocy that at this school today, many people have been killed, and that is the quote from the Florida Senator Bill Nelson. We do not know exactly what happened. We can tell you that authorities believe their person of interest was a student who was inside the school earlier today. Someone is now in custody for questioning. Whether it's the shooter or not remains to be seen. We'll wait for authorities on that. The police tell us that there's somewhere between 20 and 50 victims. They told all hospitals in the area to prepare for victims. And now the Florida Senator Bill Nelson has just told our Capitol Hill correspondent Peter Doocy that, in his words, many people have been killed. Nothing from authorities on that matter, but from the senator, we did want to pass that along. WSVN with their fine coverage from their studios in Southwest Florida, in South Florida and across the region. Let's listen.
Clock hour, the headline is that a person of interest is in custody, apprehended, not on the school campus, but a little ways away from there. And one of the reasons why, as we talk about the school, they do this room-by-room search as they secure the facility, they allow people to evacuate. That's how, one of the ways they're able to confirm whether the person they're looking for is still there. And it may be the case, in this case, that that young man had been long gone. So again, as we come up here, it looks as though they have a person of interest in custody. Live pictures from that scene that Ralph is sending us. Lynn Martinez is joining us now as our coverage here continues.
And if you're now just joining us again, as Craig said, we're approaching the top of the hour, and what these parents must have been feeling and are still feeling, and these poor kids running out of the school. If you're just now
Lynn Martinez now joining Craig Stevens as the new hour begins. The White House has just canceled the 4 p.m. briefing. The president has been updated on this. The governor of Florida has spoken with the president. The president has tweeted, as I told you just a moment ago. The president has tweeted again and says, just spoke with Governor Rick Scott. We are working closely with law enforcement in the terrible Florida school shooting. And the Florida Senator Bill Nelson says many people are dead there. WSVN now has a reporter outside the trauma center at a local hospital. Let's listen.
Right now here at Broward General in Fort Lauderdale, I can tell you we had a tough time getting here. Coming over from 95, we had to at least a couple of times wait as several ambulances and a couple of police cars zoomed past us and caused a bigger traffic jam as people headed east toward this hospital, which is understanding. We can show you some of that video right now from just moments ago. We were out here. We were able to get the ambulances from the Coconut Creek, Parkland, Margate area. Those were the municipalities inscribed on the ambulances. We had one shot. You should be able to see one shot of what looked like a teenager on the inside of one of those ambulances, and I just spoke to a friend of a parent.
This, we believe, is the description of the person of interest. Let's listen.
Right now with her son, he says that her
These
son.
are live pictures from WSVN's chopper. And that's Ralph Rayburn trying to get in to tell us about it. Let's listen.
Get to.
Right.
Go ahead, Ralph.
I'm being told two different things here, but I want to make sure I'm on the same page. They do have a subject in custody. This is the man they believe, police officers believe, was involved in the shooting here. Our address that we gave you before, 11735 Northwest 47th Drive, was the correct address here. He has been identified by witnesses now, and they have requested a Broward Sheriff's Office vehicle to come and do the final transport of this subject to wherever destination they're going to be taking him for processing right now. But this all happening within, I guess, the last hour and 20 minutes or so, when the original call went out of shots fired over at Marjory Stoneman Douglas, a school facility that has a middle school and some other schools over there next to it. They put everything on lockdown. There were 20-something students and people that were injured over there. Everyone has been treated and taken to area hospitals. There was a mass casualty incident that was put out across Broward and Palm Beach County to notify hospitals that there were going to be a number of injuries and a number of people transported. They developed information very, very quickly through witnesses and through school records of who this person was. I'm still going to hold off on the name until we get a confirmation, but we do have the name of the person, his age and all that information. They had a description of what he was wearing. They checked surveillance cameras in the buildings and around the area. They were able to determine exactly where he worked and his scheduling. He was in school today, identified by a teacher at the scene of the initial shooting, and with that information, developing that information, they put a dragnet out all over this area. I'd estimate that it's probably about a 4 or 5 square mile area, and you're watching them right now process this person, the guy in the burgundy shirt that we mentioned, and black pants. He was wearing a black hat at the time that the shootings took place, and he is in police custody right now.
All right, go ahead.
I was going to say, Ralph Rayburn, thanks for that, those live pictures, that update of this man as he's being taken into custody. And as Ralph wove that story, you can get a sense of how authorities feel as though they have the person they've been looking for a variety of reasons, a variety of ways.
It's 4 o'clock in South Florida. I'm Shepard Smith in New York on Fox News Channel and Fox television stations across the nation, where for the last hour and a half we've been monitoring developments at a high school in Broward County, Florida, Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School, where just about 2:30 Eastern Time this afternoon, authorities began to get reports of a shooting inside that school. Multiple shots, one after another. Then there were reports of 5 people injured. Broward Sheriff's Department converged on the scene, as did the Coral Springs Police Department and the Parkland Police Department. Hospitals around and throughout the area were notified to be ready for multiple casualties being brought in. Eventually, we learned that 20 to 50 people had been injured, and that a lone gunman had been responsible for all of this. We got word from Ralph Rayburn, a reporter for our local station WSVN7 in South Florida, working the chopper today for them. Word from him that they believed all of this began in one classroom with one student, and they identified that student at the time. The authorities locked down the school, told the students to lock down in place, began searching the area, put up a perimeter around, and then made their way to a nearby neighborhood less than a mile away, where they found the young man in the maroon shirt and the black pants whom you just saw, and he is their person of interest. Our understanding is that they brought witnesses from all of this to look at this man and personally identify him, and then the Broward Sheriff's Office took him into custody. What we've just been told by the Florida Senator Bill Nelson to our own Peter Doocy is that there are, and I quote, many fatalities on scene. We now know that the senator told Peter that after receiving word from the school system. Now we're waiting for authorities to tell us that the lockdown is over. We know that the students have been dismissed from the school, that they've been taken to nearby buses. We know that the authorities are still investigating. We know the streets around are closed and that hospitals are still waiting and ready to take in more casualties if necessary. This is the scene from earlier, just about 3 o'clock this afternoon, as there was barely controlled chaos around the school. You can see that the fire department, the Parkland Fire Department, was there. They loaded a number of students, or young people at least, onto stretchers and transported them to nearby hospitals. In fact, WSVN has a reporter outside the trauma center at Broward General Hospital. Let's listen in.
We've got 4 people being tended to here at Broward Health. And we're still waiting for an update from anybody in the hospital. We were able to talk to that one friend of a parent. Outside of that, man, we haven't spoken to anybody and don't see anybody on the outside. We'd like to think that if there are other relatives here, they're on the inside right now, trying to get as close to their wounded relatives as possible. We can pan off right now and show you this little scene going on out here. We're assuming that those might be family members or friends, perhaps being briefed. It looks like there might be a member of the Broward Sheriff's Office there leaning up against the pickup truck, a doctor, a man in a white coat there, and maybe some others from the hospital, either hospital staff and or family members huddled up there. Another Broward Sheriff's vehicle just pulled up, and we see a van off to its left from the Broward Sheriff's Office. We are thinking that this could be connected to what's going on the inside here. We know that we're well away from Douglas High School, well away from this active scene. But I'm looking in the distance, Manny. You probably can't see it, but we've got the ambulances across the street. Can we get to those? You've got one from Tamarack there, Tamarack Fire Rescue, and another blue ambulance just over to its left. And then there's another unit right behind that Tamarack Fire Rescue. So still some activity going on here at Broward Health Medical Center in Fort Lauderdale. As soon as we know more, as soon as we get an update, speak to a parent, speak to a hospital official, or any other activity takes place, we'll get right back to you guys, Craig and Lynn. That's the latest from Fort Lauderdale. I'm Sheldon Fox reporting live.
Sheldon, thank you. And again, look at this live picture again. We keep going back to this because it is very, very significant. Police say they have a person of interest whom may be responsible for this mass school shooting that started a little more than an hour and a half ago. This is at 117th and Northwest 47th Drive, a mile from the scene there at Parkland. The shooting started at in one classroom we hear at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School. And we saw with Ralph's pictures of the last hour or so, you know, police, SWAT, releasing some of these children and faculty very methodically, as they do in these situations. These poor kids and teachers having to run out with their hands up in the air. They took all of their backpacks as a precaution and put them in a large pile, presumably going through them looking for anything dangerous. What these kids must be going through. The question now is, as you look at this live picture to the right, of police looking at this person of interest, and the picture on the left of the very active scene, are there any more kids in this high school? Are there any more faculty left in this multi-story high school?
Well, as Ralph has been telling us, they're going to do that grid search room by room, and as they see, it's a fairly large campus, and their perimeter expanded a while ago to include that the Walmart in the area. So as they clear sections of this perimeter, they'll clear it out little by little. Couple of things. I mentioned to you earlier that the governor had been in touch with the White House, and Governor Scott is on his way, presumably from Tallahassee down to Broward County to meet with emergency management officials and law enforcement. And the president has offered some thoughts on Twitter. This from the president a short while ago. There it is. My prayers and condolences to the families of the victims of the terrible Florida shooting. No child, teacher, or anyone else should ever feel unsafe in an American school. That from the president a short while ago on Twitter. And again, as I mentioned, he and Governor Scott have spoken about this earlier in the afternoon, and the governor will be here at some point soon.
You know, we've said it so many times, and it really is true, and you don't have to be a parent to feel compassion for what everybody's going through, but what these parents must be feeling when they got that call. Some of these kids in high school, of course, drive their own cars, some of them don't, but you know, it seems like every kid has a smartphone texting their parent. We heard from one father say that his daughter said, please call 911. These parents rushing to the school. You know, if you have a kid, it's your worst nightmare, and even if you don't, you feel for everybody. Let's go back to Vanessa Medina, of course, who's been talking to some students and some parents about
Shepherd
what
Smith
they're
in New York. That's Lynn Martinez and Craig Stevens on the anchor desk and their great reporting team out in the field. I want to give you some new information that we've gotten from our other affiliates. A student, Michael Katz, told our local news station, ABC 10 there, that heard what sounded like a garbage truck like banging. And then I also hear quoting, boom, 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 and I hear screaming everywhere. He said he got under the teacher's desk. We had police invade the school and we were taken out. Fortunately, my father was there to pick me up. And this from the Miami Herald. Parents are being told that students are sitting between the Publix, which is the local supermarket chain, and the Walmart, surrounded by marshals with guns. This is Broward County, Florida, at Douglas High School. The town is Parkland, and we're waiting now for police to confirm that this active shooter situation is over. We've certainly seen the reporting there. We've seen the incredible pictures from Ralph Rayburn up in the chopper of the carting away of this one person described as a student who was wearing the maroon shirt and the black pants. And here are the pictures of that, believed to be the suspect in all of this. Trace Gallagher has new information on all of this that's coming into us. Trace, what do you have?
Well, Shep, we're not going to name this kid clearly because police have not named him, but we do know who he is, and because of that we have kind of scoured his social media footprint, which police have also done, and we have found that he has a number of relationships with gun groups, and his Instagram page is filled with these gun associations. It's unclear what type of weapon was used today. Police have not mentioned anything about that, but there was earlier talk of a possible suspect who was wearing a black cap who actually got out with some of the students as they were fleeing the building in the early going. We have also found out that this person of interest was involved in a YouTube chat room about bombs. And because of that, Shep, that prompted the police to kind of put out some alerts to go back to the school and get these kids out as quickly as possible, and then to be able to go through the school and check for bombs. So not only are they trying to clear the school as they always do from room to room and space to space, making sure they've got every inch of it covered, but now you throw this into the mix. We're not saying there was a bomb on campus. We're saying that police are now checking to make sure that there are no explosives that were also placed on campus. Again, this guy snuck out of the building and was in a neighborhood for quite some time. You had some commercial buildings which were about a mile on the other side of the school, mostly in a residential area, and it's our understanding that he was in this residential area for the better part of 45 minutes to an hour before he was apprehended by police. And there's some chatter now that this person of interest might be taken by the sheriffs before he's taken to jail, might be taken to the hospital. Maybe he's injured in some capacity. We'll keep checking, find out more about this person of interest who is now about to be transferred from the police to the sheriff's department.
So that we're clear, Trace, it's my understanding there is no reason to believe that anybody else was involved. There was but one shooter, right?
But one shooter, that's all they're saying. At first they were, as we've always seen, they always go through this checklist. There was reports of a couple of shooters. That was knocked down in the early going. Right now they are working on the premise that there was only one shooter. They believe the school is clear of any shooters, but they are going through looking for any kind of anything else that could be a harmful device. Shep.
Trace, thanks so much. On the left-hand side of your screen is over by the school, and on the right-hand side is the spot where the police brought into custody their person of interest. All of their body language has changed. It appears that this is a situation where the authorities are of the mindset that they've gotten their person of interest. Now to find out exactly what happened at that school. The official information that we have is somewhere between 20 and 50 people were injured. These are ground pictures coming to us live from WSVN. 20 to 50 people injured. We don't know an exact number. A local fire department chief has told the Miami Herald newspaper, and the Miami Herald is now reporting at least one person has been killed. Since that report, our own Peter Doocy has spoken with the Florida Senator Bill Nelson, who has told him that, quote, many people were killed inside that school, though we've not gotten confirmation from that from anywhere else. Senator Nelson says that he received that information from the school board, or from a member of the school board. I believe it's the school superintendent. We've just gotten word from Coral Springs Police that parents are picking up their schools once released from Douglas High School, and that release is underway now, so you can see that process underway. And one more thing, a senior Department of Justice official, or multiple now, tell Fox News that they are in touch with the FBI, and the Attorney General Jeff Sessions is being briefed on the Florida shooting situation. As you heard Craig Stevens report from South Florida, the president has tweeted on this matter more than once and has spoken with the governor there, Rick Scott. Now we're waiting for the Broward Sheriff's Office, a public information service, to come forward. In fact, the Broward Sheriff now confirms to Fox News the suspect is in custody. The active shooting situation is now officially over. They're beginning to evacuate the students from the school, and now we wait to learn from authorities how many people have been injured and whatever else they can tell us. You can see that the Broward Sheriff's chopper is in the air, as is our own local chopper. Let's listen to WSVN coverage now, 12 minutes past 4 p.m. in South Florida.
Saying when is enough, and it's just, again, it hits home for us down here in South Florida. Now the question is, what happened? What was the motive? We're hearing it was a student. We have not confirmed the name, or a former student. Well, again, we're trying to get that information. One student saying he knew of this student, and that student possibly had guns. And
this is the matter that we've been reporting on, and that we are not yet using, though we have the name. Trace Gallagher gave you the information that we have about this student's background, this student's participation in a gun chat, and all the rest of that background. But the rest of this speculation, we know that, having spent years working with the Broward Sheriff's Office, they are a very modern and well-equipped facility or department, and they will come forward with a public information officer to give us information when they can. We have this one picture coming in from WSVN's chopper, and there you go. These police officers from multiple jurisdictions, I believe. The green is usually the uniform of the Broward Sheriff's Office. The police uniforms are local police, still surrounding this vehicle, in which we believe the person of interest is still contained. I guess we can say suspect now, for the authorities have said that the active shooter situation is over, that the suspect is in custody. In other words, they believe at this moment that they have their man. So who is this? Well, our reporting is that this is a student who was in class this morning, in class through the day, and sometime between 2 and 2:30 this afternoon, so within the last couple of hours, this student began shooting. It happened in a classroom. There was a teacher there. We've since been told by Ralph Rayburn, the reporter for WSVN 7, that teacher had been brought out to be interviewed by police, which, to be debriefed by police, to give police what it was that she knew. And that, with other discussions, led police to this area that was nearby. If you've been watching, you watched it happen live as the chopper was above this other location, as the suspected gunman was brought out and taken into custody, put in the back of a patrol car, and thus far has not been carried away. Our locals, you see some students there. This is a live picture from up above, and these are live pictures, 2 of them coming to us from WSVN, students and parents and the rest reuniting as parents pick up their students, and WSVN continues live coverage. Let's listen.
Ralph Rayburn brought that to us about a mile or so from Stoneman Douglas High School, where this incident happened about 2:30 this afternoon. But again, to confirm through police there that the suspect they have identified in this shooting is in custody. Now, the situation at the school campus is still where there may well still be people inside rooms and sections of that school building. As they canvass, as they clear, they evacuate them, and Lynn just shared. And if you're on Twitter, you might want to follow Coral Springs PD. They've done a great job this afternoon of providing information as quickly and as they can for pickup information for those of you with students who attend that school. And I'm going to retweet it in a couple seconds. I know Lynn has it too, and we'll go over that again. Once they're released, it's the North Heron Bay Marriott, south at Betty Stradling Park. And that's where you will be able to pick up your kids at this point in time, as per Coral Springs PD.
Craig Stevens and Lynn Martinez on the local anchor desk down in South Florida. We've just gotten this. This comes to us from our network news service affiliate, WFOR in South Florida, who report to us that a lot of students don't have their seventh period, the last period of the day, so that at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, when this is alleged to have begun, there would have been a big mass of people near where they believe the shooting happened. This as well, there is always a marked officer in the school from the Broward Sheriff's Office. So somewhere in that school was an officer who was wearing his or her Broward County Sheriff's Office uniform. And the word now from the Broward County Sheriff's Office and the Coral Springs Police there locally is that the shooter is in custody. There's no reason to believe there is another shooter. What we're waiting to find out now is about casualties. Well, a motive and casualties. Whether authorities have a motive remains to be seen, but we're expecting they'll be able to give us information about the students involved and anyone else who may have been hurt as the first calls went out just about 2:30 Eastern Time this afternoon. The latest that we've gotten from the locals, the numbers are varying wildly, but Senator Bill Nelson has been our source on multiple fatalities at the school. We're waiting for Broward Sheriff's or Coral Springs Police, as are our friends at WSVN 7 in South Florida. Let's listen.
So to the right here is a live picture of the scene where this shooter was taken into custody. And to the left is a picture of the scene, sort of the perimeter there outside of the high school, Marjorie Stoneman Douglas.
Let's run over to Vanessa Medina. She is the superintendent of Broward Schools.
And yes, it is potentially some former student. Don't have a name yet. I can't release any information to you. But that individual, we believe, is in custody at the moment.
We hear a high number of casualties. Are you getting any indication from the sheriff just how many people may have died?
Can't confirm the number at this point, but there are fatalities involved here.
Can you tell us at least how many transports? Did you know maybe a dozen?
I don't know the number that's been transported at this point, but again, there are numerous fatalities. It's a horrific situation. It's just a horrible day for us. And
we got reports of multiple shootings. Can you confirm that?
I'm sorry, what's that?
There were more than one shooter.
No, at this point we have no evidence that there's been more than one shooter. The individual, again, we believe has been apprehended. I would leave it to the sheriff to provide you additional details around that.
Mr. Runcie.
They saw a teacher who was dead. Is that confirmed by you? A teacher shot?
Teacher is it?
I believe there's an administrator or teacher that is involved. There may be more. I can't confirm if that's been one of the fatalities at the moment.
Superintendent, this is a day I'm sure every superintendent fears, and to happen here in Broward.
It's a day that you pray every day. I get up that we will never have to see. It is in front of us, and I ask the community for your prayers, your support for these children and their families. We're going to do whatever we can to come together as a community to pull through this, and we will. And again, we're doing everything we possibly can. The students are being evacuated and released at the moment, so we're working through that process right now.
Are you aware of any indication, any warning, any hint that the students could have been planning?
We've received no warning, no indication, but again, there's going to be a thorough investigation. Typically, you see in these situations that there potentially could have been signs out there. I would be speculating at this point if there were, but we didn't have any warnings. There weren't any phone calls or threats that we know of that were made.
Superintendent, there's so many parents that are afraid to send their kids to school. What would you tell them out there?
Well, what I would say is that we cannot live in a world that's built on fear. We have to do what we can to make sure that we provide the greatest safety measures we can for our kids. But what I'll tell you is that mental health issues in this country are growing, and they're a big challenge, and it's something that's going to need to certainly be addressed within our school systems as well as in the broader society to ensure that these kind of tragedies don't continue. We've got to be able to recognize individuals that are in distress, that have challenges, and be able to find ways to support them. But our schools, we do what we can to make sure they're as safe as they possibly can be for our children. And again, this is a day that we prayed would never be here at Broward County, but we're dealing with it, and we're going to deal with it as a community. We'll pull through it, and you know, my prayers and heartfelt sorrow goes out to the families and this entire community.
Those comments about mental health and stress, are they speculation on your part, or do you have some information about who is responsible? And you know.
Well, all I would say is that.
Other than the obvious.
Other than the obvious, that's correct. No, I don't. No sane person that's is going to go and commit such an atrocity. So I would say that it is something that we have to deal with.
But it's not based on your knowledge of.
It's not based on my knowledge of anything regarding the individual who committed this, but I know it's a challenge, and it's something that we've been certainly trying to deal with throughout Broward County and throughout this nation. But you know, we're going to have to step up our efforts on that.
With someone in custody, so the rest of the students, hundreds of them are being evacuated right now, right?
That's correct. Yeah, they're clearing buildings out. They're doing it in a orderly manner to make sure that's safe. So again, there's a enormous presence of law enforcement here, and they're assisting in the evacuation process as we speak.
Westglades right next door, those students, the middle school, are those students still inside, or have they been let go?
They are probably going through an evacuation process as well. We have students we know that are coming from some of our middle schools like Nova, where they typically may get dropped off here. We have them being dropped off at another school site, and we're notifying parents.
On a typical afternoon, what police presence and security presence is on?
Every high school in this county has police presence at the high school, so there were officers on the school site at all times.
Do you know for certain how many or where?
There typically are at least two cars of law enforcement individuals on our campuses on a daily basis.
Resource officers, are they called?
They're called school resource officers. That is correct.
Superintendent, was the shooter just contained to that one building? Do you know, did he go into another building?
Don't know the path or exactly how the shootings occurred.
Where were you when you got that phone call and your heart had to have dropped?
So today has been a day of enormous mountains and valleys. I was leaving Monarch High School, where we were giving the Teacher of the Year keys to a brand new Toyota Camry that she won from being a Teacher of the Year in Broward County. We were celebrating our teachers, our schools, and got in the car. And as I'm driving back to the office, I start seeing communication, and I hear from staff that we may have a tragedy, and so I literally have come from giving the Teacher of the Year a car and celebrating our teachers and our district to where I am right now.
The deadliest school shooting in Broward County ever.
That's what it appears to be.
I'm so sorry. Thank you so much for updating us. There you just heard it from Superintendent
Robert Runcie, who is the superintendent of schools in Broward County, Florida, the 6th largest school district in America with 270,000 students, 337 schools, and 30,000 employees. One of his schools is in the town of Parkland, Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School, where the superintendent, who walks away now, told us in tears just a moment ago of the tragedy he hoped and prayed he would never see. We do not know the number of people who've been killed, but from the looks on the superintendent's face, there are a number. The Senator Bill Nelson has informed us that many people have died today. We don't know how many are students, we don't know how many are administrators or teachers, but we know that the superintendent of schools, a very shaken man while delivering the news of what's happened today. Think of it, giving the Teacher of the Year a car and hearing that there had been a tragedy at one of his 337 schools, and reporting here to the town of Parkland and Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School to a scene of carnage. Another school shooting in America. Another line of students walking with their hands above their heads. Another young man taken into custody. And another superintendent grieving. WSVN 7 is continuing to cover this. All the local stations in South Florida broke into their local programming about 2:30 this afternoon, and the pictures on the right-hand side of your screen are what we saw first. Students running frantically from their school, where apparently we now know one person had been firing a weapon and had killed people around them. They came to these triage areas, and we've just gotten word from the Broward Sheriff's Office that 14 people have been transported to area schools. They had told us earlier that the number was somewhere between 20 and 50. 14 transported. We don't know about any who may not have been transported. But to hear it from the superintendent of schools and from Senator Bill Nelson, a number of people have been killed. This began just about 2 hours ago, a little more now, with the first calls coming into the Broward Sheriff's Office. Coral Springs Police there, Parkland Police on scene, all sort of in a coordinated effort, as they knew they had a gunman who they could not find. So they locked down the school, locked down the community, continued to expand the perimeter around it, eventually extended it to a nearby Walmart. There was another school in the area that was put on lockdown. Students in the classrooms told to shelter in place, to get down, to lock the doors, teachers keeping them there. And then a line of students coming out as police began to evacuate them, one after another, dozens and then hundreds of kids piling their backpacks along this divided street on which the school sits. Some of them being taken away to hospitals, others being moved to other locations so that their parents could come to get them. All of their belongings left in the street there for checking, because the authorities uncertain about exactly where the gunman was. How had the gunman gotten away from the school? Well, it now appears that they believe as the students were escaping, so did the gunman. And they found him about an hour and 15 minutes later, not a mile from that school. And now WSVN has a reporter on scene describing what's happening at this moment as we wait to learn about fatalities. Let's listen in.
That they never expected anything like this to happen. Again, it's a gated community. They're now shaken up. They can't believe they witnessed the man in that maroon shirt being thrown on the ground, arrested right in front of their eyes. Again, that suspect is responsible for those multiple injuries at this school. They say they never saw this coming. Not confirming, don't know if he lives here or why he came to this community, but he was again arrested in the Wyndham Lakes community here in Coral Springs. This is a man who is now going to the hospital and responsible for these multiple injuries at this school. We are asking questions. We have talked to people here who are on scene and witness it. They barely want to be on camera. They can't believe they saw this. They're scared. They're shaken up. Again, so we're trying to get more information as to, again, if this person lives here, why he came to this community, working to get those answers. Right now, he is being sent to North Broward Hospital. No word on his injuries, but I did see that cell phone video, and he was on the ground. So again, don't know if he was hurt in that struggle or hurt in some other way, but he is now being sent to the hospital. We'll bring you the latest as we learn more. Reporting live here in Coral Springs, Franklin White, 7 News.
Franklin White, thank you for that live update. We'll get back with you as you are able to learn some more from there.
Okay, I just want to repeat, that was a pretty substantial and very informative live interview with Superintendent Robert Runcie. He said there are, quote, numerous fatalities, and that's the first official to actually say that, and he said that just a few minutes ago, numerous fatalities in what is now a deadly school shooting. He called it the deadliest school shooting in the history of Broward County. He alluded that that some administrators or teachers may be among the dead. He said students will be evacuated and released as they clear each room in an orderly fashion. He also said that every high school, and we know this, those of you who live in Broward County, even in Dade County, has a police presence, typically 2 cars of law enforcement, and that really goes to the investigation. Who is this person? Robert Runcie said that the shooter may actually be a former student who perhaps knew the layout of the school. And you're looking at a live picture again of Pompano Beach Fire Rescue transporting this individual, this alleged shooter, to the hospital, along with at least 14 other victims, also in various hospitals.
Also, along with our reporting this afternoon, the superintendent indicated that, to his knowledge, there was no prior warning, no signs that this student or former student, if that's the case, was someone that needed to be on their radar. And that is significant in that authorities, before he was in custody, had an idea who he was. They know where he worked. They had an opportunity to look at his search history on his computer, according to our reporting. So they've already developed a bit of a portrait of this young man, and that may well help them as they advance their investigation, as that now gets underway. As we, of course, our main priority now is focusing on the victims and their treatment and care and support for their loved ones. And then on the other aspect of this, as the investigation gets underway, they have a little bit of a leg up in that they've been able to develop a portrait of this young man because they've had a good idea who they were looking for a good part of the afternoon.
And, of course, the aftermath, as we look at a live picture again of the suspect being transported to the hospital, the aftermath really is back at the school. The kids who had to go through this, the parents who are still dealing with their own trauma, that's going to linger for a long time, as we've seen in so many school shootings across the United States. Again, parents, according to Superintendent Robert Runcie, I want to tell you that students, he said, are being evacuated excuse me, and released. We saw live pictures about an hour ago of these students being released very methodically, told to run out of the building with their hands up. Everybody, this is very systematic, has to leave the building anytime there's a shooting with their hands up running, and they left their backpacks in a pile so police could go through them. But they are being released, and if you need to pick up your child, again, this is from Coral Springs Police Department, pick up for students once they're released, which, of course, Robert Runcie just said is happening now, from Douglas High School, North Heron Bay Marriott. Go to the Marriott South at Betty Stradling Park. So I'm sure the parents are going to have to show ID.
We're listening to Lynn Martinez in South Florida, as an entire community has just learned that one of their schools has been shot up by either a student or a former student. Craig Stevens speaking now, the audio kind of competing. But the reason I'm letting you know is all of the local stations are telling families where to go to pick up family members, and on all of the local television stations they're watching this fire rescue vehicle take the person that police say is responsible for this carnage to a hospital to be treated. We know 14 people, according to the reporting of WSVN and the local authorities, have been taken to local hospitals. We don't know how many people did not make it out of that school alive. WSVN waiting for the Broward Sheriff's Office and the Coral Springs Police, the Parkland Police, to give us more information about that. The afternoon rush hour beginning on the left-hand side of your screen, and then on the right-hand side as they zoom in, that's the vehicle containing the suspect and taking that suspect to a hospital for treatment. On the left-hand side of your screen is the area around the school, and now the reporters from WSVN trying to get to the bottom of what the motivation was here, how this all got started, who saw what, and how many didn't survive. Let's listen.
And communicated that, in fact, it was actually a shooting. Kids started running out of the classroom and out of the building. And at least, and again, as Craig's mentioned, it's so true, the number is changing, at least 14 injured. We heard Robert Runcie, superintendent of Broward County Public Schools, say a few moments ago, numerous fatalities. He called this a horrible day and the deadliest school shooting in the history of Broward County.
One of the students we'd been hearing from earlier, and I guess we've heard this from quite a few of them, initially when the alarm was sounded, people thought it was a drill. They had a drill earlier in the day, and they thought, oh, this again. And then one of the kids mentioned, you know, it's Valentine's Day, and there's so many balloons, that they thought the noise they heard was coming from balloons. And then he kind of regrouped and said, no, that's not it. And then that realization set in. So, you know, by golly, they, on a day that a lot of folks came in to, you know, celebrate that special someone on campus and brought the balloons and the candy and so on and so forth. And they quickly realized there was no celebration going on. There indeed was a shooting happening.
My friend Craig Stevens encapsulating what has been the most incredible day. I mean, think of it. It's Valentine's Day in this school. And as he just pointed out, they're all celebrating. And what if it's that? Sadly, it was not. Let's turn to the Florida Senator Bill Nelson, who's joining us live now and was the first to tell us so sadly that that there were fatalities in this instance. I understand, Senator, thank you. I understand you spoke with Superintendent Runcie, Robert Runcie of the Broward School District earlier. What did he tell you?
Yeah, it's a bad day, Shepard. He told me just exactly what he then, an hour later, said live in a press conference down there. Number of fatalities. He did not know the exact amount, but He implied that it was clearly more than one and could be several and many. Our heart goes out to the families of students, the school. They're grieving. I have already said my prayers to give them comfort, but this is a tough time. And Shepard, each time this happens, and how many have happened, we say enough is enough, and then it happens again. So it's a tough, tough day.
What can Congress do?
Well, you know, we could not even get past a bill that would take the terrorist watch list and prohibit them from buying a high-caliber weapon or any weapon. We couldn't even get that passed. So when you say what can be done, I don't know the answer to that.
What do you say to parents in South Florida who this afternoon are living a nightmare that no one would wish on their worst enemy?
Well, I hope you've made contact with your child, and I hope it's not long until you can wrap your arms around them. And unfortunately, there are going to be some that it's going to be very difficult because they can't do that.
Have you spoken with anyone else, Senator, outside of Superintendent Runcie?
Yes, I've spoken to the undersheriff. I've spoken to the FBI. By the way, they are on the ground. They are leading this effort. And then going into the investigation, they are going to be the lead there. And then we'll know all the specifics. And to your earlier question, what can be done? We'll know the specifics of, was it a high-caliber weapon? Did the shooter get the weapon legally? And so forth and so on.
Which undersheriff did you speak with, and what did he or she tell you?
There is one undersheriff, and the information that I had about the fatalities came from the superintendent.
Undersheriff Thomas Wheeler?
Yes, there's only one undersheriff.
And tell us what kind of, if you can, what kind of information he gave you.
Well, no more than what I've just shared, that they are there, they're actively there. He was standing in on the phone call for me because Sheriff Israel was in another part. And the superintendent was on his way about 10 minutes ago to meet with Sheriff Israel. So Superintendent Runcie will now know what the extent of the information that law enforcement has.
Do you know anything about this suspect's background?
I don't.
Well, we have a good bit of information, and we're not going to give that name out till we hear it from authorities, because that's right. A policy around.
I think that's a good policy.
Senator, the best to you and yours, and thank you for being here.
Thanks, Shepard.
So now we wait. We wait, as so many families most likely do in South Florida. Normally, by this time, we don't know how many people will not leave that school today. But we all saw the Superintendent Runcie together. That's a man who has 337 schools under him and 30,000 employees with 270,000 students. That's the 6th largest school district in America. And today they're all focused on that one area in that one school, and we're waiting to find out from local authorities how many did not survive. It is the story in South Florida, of course, this afternoon, and is in coverage in all of the local English and Spanish language television stations, and the same on television stations across the country, as the networks have picked up this coverage from South Florida this afternoon. Let's listen into the news station WSVN as their coverage continues. 20 minutes to 5 this afternoon.
going to the same hospital, presumably, were 4 other shooting victims. Or I wanted to correct myself. You saw a live picture on the left-hand side earlier. Apparently, that is the hospital where the suspect is going, Broward Health. Now, on the left-hand side, we have, I believe is this video, guys, or is this live? This is video, okay, on the left-hand side. Even though it says live, to the right is a live picture. To the left is video of when they were taking this shooting suspect on a stretcher about 30 minutes ago. This is a live picture, of course, outside of the school, Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School there in Parkland, where there are numerous fire rescue and fire trucks and police trucks. Police cars were there on the scene. FBI is on the scene. SWAT is still there. Coral Springs PD is there. And, of course, everyone with the school system, including Robert Runcie, superintendent, is there as well. What's happening right now is how to release the children, evacuating each room, clearing each floor, evacuating each child and pairing each child up with their parent or whoever is in charge of this child. And to the right again, we continue to follow Pompano Beach Fire Rescue transporting the suspect, the shooting suspect, to Broward Health North.
And that may well, I think the superintendent also referenced West Glade, which is just across from Douglas High, would be affected too. So you can see, even in the pictures there, just the number of people who are outside. But it is an orderly process. As I mentioned a little while ago, there is a procedure they go through by which they check everybody out one by one, and that could take a while. So for moms and dads or guardians, grandparents, anybody who's going to pick up these kids, just keep that in mind. It could take a few minutes before you're able to actually physically leave the area with them once you make that connection.
We're also getting word that Governor Rick Scott is traveling to Broward County now to be briefed by emergency management officials and law enforcement. There's word that as soon as he heard about the shooting at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School, Governor Scott spoke with President Trump. He spoke with law enforcement, school officials, and the Department of Homeland Security. Again, as you look at a live picture, aerial picture of the still very, very active scene. Again, the takeaway right now, it's got to be one of the saddest days in South Florida. Sad for those of us who have children, sad for those of us who just live here and don't have children. Robert Runcie, superintendent, says there are numerous fatalities in this school shooting, called it the deadliest school shooting in the history of Broward County, in an absolutely horrible day. He said, we'll pull through this as a community, and we've seen these images, we've seen this story, whether Columbine, whether Newtown, whether schools from coast to coast in the United States, where communities have had to pull together to get through something like this. And we're still trying to get a handle on what exactly we're going to be dealing with, but to echo the superintendent's statements there, that South Florida will get through this too. Broward County will get through this, but certainly with the help of loved ones and neighbors, because this is something that, as we heard from some folks there in Parkland, you see it, but you don't think it's going to happen in your community, and sadly, now it has here in Broward County. And, of course, in the coming days, as the investigation begins and continues, there are going to be a lot of questions as to who this person is. Were there any signs? Superintendent Runcie said there were no signs. They got no warnings. This may be a former student. Look at a live picture right now on the ground. Pompano Beach Fire Rescue transporting inside this particular fire rescue truck is a person that police say is responsible for numerous fatalities, causing the deadliest school shooting in the history of Broward County. He is being taken for whatever reason to Broward Health North. For what we understand, at least he's going to the same hospital that 4 other shooting suspects that he allegedly is responsible for putting in the hospital will be at also.
And again, not clear on the nature of what requires this, why it's not a straight trip down to one of the law enforcement buildings for processing and all that. It might be an abundance of caution, might be he was injured in some way, but we do know his first stop upon being taken into custody is the hospital. You might have been able to see, I think I saw one of our, well, we do have a reporter there, obviously, but Walter Morris, but you saw the throngs of people who were there. So just as soon as we get some information about this young man, and of course the other victims Lynn mentions who were brought to Broward Health North, we'll get back up there to get a sense of what they've got.
And I was just thinking about the parents and the loved ones. What must it be like to go to this hospital, Broward Health North, because your child or perhaps your husband or wife who works at the school was injured, was shot, and the alleged shooter is there as well. That's got to be high emotion and a lot of stress for everybody involved. So you see the truck there, it backed in, the doors are opening. We saw earlier the suspect actually be put on a stretcher, and you can look at it to the right there. He looked like he was wearing a dark shirt. I think Walter said it was maroon. He had dark hair. Again, no word on exactly why they decided to take him to the hospital, what his actual injuries or state are. Instead of processing, as Craig mentioned, but indeed he's just arrived at Broward Health North along with some other victims as well. At least 14.
It's Craig Stevens watching along with us, Lynn Martinez and Craig Stevens. We have just gotten the first video from inside the school. What's the origin of this? This is a student took this video, and you and I are watching this together. This is inside a classroom, it would appear, and let's listen. Remember, students were first told to shelter in place, and then they went in to evacuate them all. This apparently video from an auditorium that a student took. We saw a picture, a still picture earlier that WSVN was showing, and it appeared to be from that same room. The question now is, you heard Lynn Martinez there from South Florida saying that this suspect has been taken to the same hospital, Broward Health North. Broward Health Center has a number of hospitals there. Broward Health North is where they took this suspect. 4 other people who are said to be victims of this person are also in this hospital. And Lynn was saying, imagine you're the parent or the brother or the child of someone who is in this school, who was in that school and shot. According to authorities, the suspect was just brought there as well. It's a strange come together. And again, we remember when we saw the overhead shots of the man being taken into custody less than a mile from the school, he was, and there they are, he was wearing that maroon shirt that Lynn was talking about and was put into the back of this vehicle. Of course, we don't have an up-close view here, but there was no indication that he had been injured in some way. Of course, if a suspect complains and says he or she needs medical treatment, and you're a law enforcement officer, you pretty much have to do that. You know, and all praise to these law enforcement officers. Think of what they have accomplished today. The school shooting began about 2:30, and by 3:45, this man was in custody. And no one was in any danger anymore because of whoever this is. We don't know his motivation. We've heard the reporting of Trace Gallagher about his background, and I'm going to go to Trace for that in just a few minutes, for those of you who may have joined us late. But we've learned a lot about this suspect. We haven't used his name yet because it's our policy not to until authorities release it. But we've learned a lot about his background, and I'll go to Trace for that in a moment. But somewhere along the way, he asked for medical treatment. So they put him in the back of a Pompano Beach fire rescue vehicle and took him to Broward Health North, where some of the other victims of this shooting today were. And now I suppose they are treating him. At some point, they'll take him back down to I assume, the Broward Sheriff's Office somewhere, as Craig mentioned, for processing and the rest. This man has a lot to answer for. Trace Gallagher, his background is coming into view to some degree. Tell us what you can.
Yeah, and we're still not going to release his name, Shep, because police have not released it to us, and it's just good policy. But we have kind of scoured his social media footprint, and we have found that on his Facebook page, he left the picture part blank. And as far as that, there wasn't a lot of information we can glean from the Facebook page. But if you look at things like his Instagram page, you can see that he is fascinated by guns. Again, we do not know the type of weapon. We don't know the power of the weapon, but we do know that this suspect, if in fact it is him, is fascinated by guns, is fascinated by gun groups. He is also following resistance groups like Syrian resistance groups and fighter groups out of Iraq. And we should also note that a couple of days ago, maybe as far as a week ago, that he was involved in a YouTube chat room conversation about bombs or building bombs. And because of that, we could hear earlier while this was going on the scanner traffic, police were saying, look, we just found this information. This kid was on a building bomb site. We need to check the school for bombs, maybe 1 or 2 bombs. So you throw that into the mix, and you have SWAT teams and police now trying to scour this school, going room to room and space to space, trying to clear it. And then you throw in this alternate factor of the possibility that there might have also been explosives. Now, we should point out that there has been no mention of them finding any type of harmful device at this school. And in fact, we should note the police have said there is always, by the way, a police presence on campus at this school. It's kind of a complex of buildings that houses middle schoolers and high schoolers, 3,200 students in all. There is also a police presence at all times, but the superintendent today said there was no warning at all. No warnings, no threats of violence at all in the past days. So when you kind of link that with his social media footprint, you can bet right now the FBI is involved, local police are involved. They are talking to this person's family and his friends, trying to figure out kind of an MO of why this happened. But if they go deeper into his social media footprint, Shep, they're going to get a lot of information about who he's following and what he's been doing in the past weeks and months leading up to today's horrific shooting.
Trace Gallagher, thanks so much. Coming to us from WSVN, live pictures from ahead. This is the area where they had set up the triage a little bit earlier outside the school, and a reporter there now with an update. Let's listen in.
Well, a lot of the students are being taken to the Marriott. A lot of the parents that tried to get closer on this end are coming back without their child because they are taking the students, once they've been cleared, like you said, methodically out of the school. They're taking them to a nearby Marriott. But you said the trauma involved as students, because some students are being released in this area as well. As students are starting to come out, the ones closest to that gunfire, many of them showing us, like you said, they have smartphones, many of them showing us those pictures, some too graphic to put on television, blood on the ground in this school. We also heard of a coach that jumped in front of several students to block them from several bullets, possibly passing away inside of the school. So you're talking about trauma. It doesn't even cover the surface of what a lot of these students saw here today, things that no one should ever see, much less teenagers see inside of a place that they should feel safe. This happening here in Parkland. You're seeing they're trying to clear this area. You're seeing parents coming out, many of them without their child. This has been going on now several hours. Parents running to that area to find their loved one, and now they just want to be reunited with their child. They just want to hug their child. For the parents who are coming here and getting the worst possible news that a parent could ever get, that their child did not make it, those parents are being escorted out of here as well. We have been told that 4 students were taken to Broward North, and 4 students were also taken to Broward Health Medical Center in Fort Lauderdale. But an absolute chaotic, horrific scene out here in Parkland when a gunman walked inside of that school and began shooting, taking lives. Superintendent Robert Runcie saying that there were multiple fatalities. We don't have any clear numbers, but you're seeing still the aftermath out here. People still trying to figure out where their child is, if they were taken to a nearby hotel, if they're still inside of the school being cleared out. But to handle hundreds and hundreds of students at dismissal time, when it was a time that we're supposed to be leaving, getting ready to go home, instead police rushing to this scene to try to figure out what was happening. Ma'am, are you looking for your child still at this point? No. Well, luckily. So as you can see, parents still walking out, but this scene here has been closed off, so parents either with a student inside or on the phone that have some contact with their child allowed in to possibly find their child. But this is a plaza here. There's a Walmart inside of this plaza here, and many students, when everything happened, running to this plaza, many parents going around on the other side to pick up their child on this area too. But strong words from Superintendent Robert Runcie saying today was was he had such a high, giving us Teacher of the Year award, and then he began getting phone calls in regards to the shooting, and it was the absolute lowest point that anyone could possibly hear. So he had a high and low, the worst day in Broward.
We're interrupting WSVN's coverage. A police news conference is beginning. Let's listen.
I don't know the number right now. It's a fluid scene right now. We have multiple SWAT teams clearing all the buildings. If anybody knows anything about Stoneman Douglas High School, it's one of the biggest schools in Broward County. It's huge. It's a huge campus. So we have multiple SWAT teams clearing every building to make sure that there are no other shooters. We have a shooter in custody. He was taken into custody, I believe, about an hour after he left Stoneman Douglas, after he committed this horrific, homicidal, detestable act. The FBI and our crime scene people will be processing this horrific scene as soon as the buildings are cleared. Right now, the buildings are not safe to be cleared. We're asking that you put out on the news ASAP that any parent who's looking for their child to please go immediately to the Marriott within the Heron Bay complex. Our deputies and other police officers are transporting these young students over to Heron Bay to be reunited with their parents. So that's where we want parents to go. I want to thank Mayor Beam, Commissioner Sharif, and Mr. Runcie for being here to support the Broward Sheriff's Office and to be with me at this terrible time. Last thing I want to say is this is a terrible day for Parkland, Broward County, the state of Florida, and the United States. My very own triplets went to that school and graduated from Stoneman Douglas. They played football and lacrosse at that school. So it's just catastrophic. There really are no words, and we will keep you updated. I have spoken to Governor Scott. He's out of state. He is on his way over here. I have spoken to President Trump, and he's offered the full power of the United States of America to help us get through this. Any questions? I can't hear you.
Can you elaborate on the shooter?
He was found off campus. I don't exactly know where. I believe he was found in the city of Coral Springs by a Coconut Creek police officer. That's unconfirmed right now. There's so much information.
Can you give us an age range of those?
I can't. From what I understand, there was a time where he did attend the school. I don't know why he left. I don't know when he left.
But he was not a current student.
That is correct. He was not a current student.
Was there any confrontation between him and police? Did he open fire?
I wasn't there, but I was told that there was no confrontation. He was, can you hear me? Yeah. He was taken into arrest without incident. Yes.
Do you have anyone else in custody? I understand.
No.
Just
one.
Okay, do you have an age on him?
I believe he's approximately 18 years old.
Okay, and then at least one dead?
Multiple.
Multiple, so more than one.
And you said the school's not safe right now, but there's still children inside. And what have you heard?
Well, I don't know. We believe at this point that all children that we know about are cleared and are outside the building. However, we don't know if there are injured people. We don't know if there are people hiding. We don't know. So we will not begin to release information or begin to open up the crime scene until the SWAT components say the school is safe and clear. When I hear all clear, we'll begin the next phase of this investigation.
Are teachers dead or only students?
I have no idea.
You heard of Mr. Beagle?
No.
Injuries, approximately how many?
Well, I don't know how many injuries there were, but we know 14 people were transported to area hospitals with varying degrees of wounds. What we'll do is we'll wait for the school to be cleared. We'll go on to the next phase. I know this is critically important to release information to Broward County, and we will keep you up to date. But for right now, there's no more information to impart.
Can you talk about where the shooter was? Was he inside the school? We've heard, and I know there's a lot of rumors that at one point there were firecrackers, and then it was a drive-by. Was the shooter inside the school in time?
He was outside and inside at varying times. He certainly was inside. Thank you.
In terms of those dead, have their families been notified?
Scott Israel speaking live there. A little bit of new information.
All right, you've been watching live coverage of the Florida school shooting from Fox News. Our coverage continues right now on Fox 5 News at 5.
Fox 5 News at 5 starts right now.
And we begin with breaking news tonight. A deadly shooting at a school in South Florida. Chaos and terror as hundreds of students run from the building as SWAT team members swarm in.
School leaders say there are numerous fatalities and as many as 20 injuries. All of the hospitals around Broward County were warned, prepare for a huge influx of patients.
And late word that authorities have a suspect in custody. Police swarmed a scene just a short distance from the school, apparently putting a young male in the back of a police cruiser. The superintendent says he's a former student. As we say good evening and welcome, I'm Tom Haynes.
And I'm Sine Simpson. We begin tonight with this tragedy out of Florida. A school shooting at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School.
Now, this is in South Florida in the town of Parkland. It's about 50 miles north of Miami and 40 miles south of West Palm Beach. Police got an emergency call just about 2.5 hours ago. The school was immediately placed on lockdown and police and SWAT team members arrived just moments later.
They said they heard a shot. One of my friends said that a girl from his class was shot.
And where were you when this all happened?
In my classroom. I was really nearby the exit.
And you're hearing this happen in the freshman building is what we're hearing.
Such a scary scene. We want to send it over now to Fox 5's Russ Spencer for some new information about the person of interest. Russ?
Well, Sine and Tom, authorities are not naming that person of interest, but they are telling us that they know the name is out there, and the Broward County Sheriff's Department confirms he has been taken into custody. We're hearing that the suspect is a former student at the high school, and witnesses say he ran out of the building, hiding in the crowd of other students who were escaping the danger. That person of interest was arrested about 90 minutes later in a nearby neighborhood. There were reports that the suspected shooter was recently involved in a YouTube chat room discussing bombs. And that has now prompted police to go back into the school, searching room by room for explosives. Now, as for casualties, we don't have official word from police, but the school superintendent spoke to that issue just moments ago.
There are numerous fatalities. It's a horrific situation. It's just a horrible day for us.
President Trump has been briefed about the shooting and responded to the news on Twitter saying, quote, "My prayers and condolences to the families of the victims of the terrible Florida shooting. No child, teacher, or anyone else should ever feel unsafe in an American school." Now, the White House has canceled its daily briefing, and we're told that President Trump has already spoken with Florida Governor Rick Scott about the shooting. And Governor Scott will likely hold a news briefing in the coming hours, and we will, of course, bring that to you. Tom?
Day unfolding there in South Florida. Russ, thank you. We have continuing coverage of this school shooting. We're constantly updating the story on fox5atlanta.com and on the Fox 5 Atlanta News app. And of course, we'll break in as we get new information throughout this hour and coming up tonight on Fox 5 News at 6.
Well, developing now in Henry County tonight. Within just the last hour, the widow of a slain Locust Grove police officer and her newborn baby were released from the hospital. Bodie Maddox was born yesterday. His father, Locust Grove police officer Chase Maddox, was killed Friday as he served a warrant with 2 Henry County deputies.
Since Maddox's murder, the community's rallied around his widow and his children. Fox 5's Doug Evans has been in Henry County all day, and Doug, another show of support this afternoon.
It was a really poignant scene, Tom and Sine, here on Rock Quarry Road as Alex Maddox and her new son, Bodie, were released from Piedmont Hospital here in Henry County just this afternoon. We can show you some pictures of the scenes, also show you some pictures of young Bodie. Officers lined Rock Quarry Road. Dozens and dozens of police cars from all over Metro Atlanta stopped with the officers outside, some saluting, some with their hands over their hearts, some standing at attention. They weren't the only ones. Many members of the public stopped whatever they were doing as Alex Maddox came by in a car. Some people came out of restaurants. Some people came out of hair salons. Traffic traffic was stopped as well. People got out of their cars and just stood there as a way of showing their respect and honor to this young woman. Of course, what a tragic week it's been here in Henry County. Officer Chase Maddox was gunned down on Friday. This should be a joyous week for this young couple with the birth of their new son, but it has been a week of grieving and a week of tragedy. I spoke with some folks at the city of Locust Grove who have visited Alex Maddox in the hospital since her delivery. They say she is absolutely overjoyed at the birth of her son Bodie, overjoyed that he is healthy, and in fact she says perfect in every way. But this is a young mother that is still grieving very, very much, and understandably. Let me tell you about some of the show of support that they've had here. There is a fund that is set up at United Community Bank, the Maddox Family Fund, where you can donate money. Also, people are dropping off baby supplies at the Locust Grove Police Department. The training room there, Tom and Sine, is filled with diapers and blankets and everything that this family will need. The community has been very, very generous indeed. Live in Henry County, Doug Evans, Fox 5 News.
So very kind. Doug, thanks so much. Well, the Locust Grove Police Department has announced funeral service information for Officer Maddox. That service will be held this Saturday at 11 a.m. at Glen Haven Baptist Church. It's located at 345 East Lake Road in McDonough. Tom?
Sinead, crimes all over Metro Atlanta, car break-ins and thefts that leave the owners frustrated and out of a lot of money. Now police say they've arrested the ringleaders of a theft ring responsible for hundreds of car break-ins and thefts. Officers say they've hit in all of the places around Metro Atlanta that you see here, taking valuables out of cars and in some cases the entire car itself. Fox 5's Morris Diggs spent the day investigating the crimes and the ones that they're accused of committing, and he joins us now live. Morris?
Well, we have just received photos of some of the items that have been recovered. So if you've been a recent victim of one of these smash and grabs, take a look. Look closely to see. You may see your gun or clothing or iPad. Stolen items and criminal tools of a multi-county criminal enterprise. Chances are you don't keep your ammunition in a sock if you're owning a weapon legally. A College Park police major talked about the significance of bringing in so-called ringleader Dante Bell. He and alleged accomplices are accused of smash and grabs all around the metro.
They're very significant. Over the past several months, we've experienced an innumerable amount of car break-ins and vehicles stolen. This loosely formed gang has been stealing cars, people leaving their cars running at the gas stations, maybe breaking in cars in driveways, parked on the side of the road, stealing whatever's not nailed down.
It was a combined operation between East Point Police and College Park that netted the most recent arrests. Major Patterson says the thieves returned to the Camp Creek Marketplace on Tuesday. East Point, which has a precinct on the premises, spotted them breaking into vehicles.
They're bold.
Fellow students dead in a hall. It's just we're left just to wonder how many kids and administrators and teachers are unaccounted for, and how to get a weapon in there, and how long this went on. One of the darkest days in Broward County history, of course, and all of South Florida, as the president has said. Thoughts and prayers with all of those involved. This is that vehicle, 9407, I believe. These are pictures from earlier. That's the bringing of the suspect into custody. And there he is, described earlier. It immediately went out through the students and others there that he was wearing a maroon shirt. He had black pants. At one point, he had a black cap on. And they figured out very quickly where he lived in the local police. I am not sure which jurisdiction, but they'll let us know that eventually. Was able to get him into custody. We don't know what other sort of designs he had. We know that he had been talking about bombs. Whether that was just talk or we'll know eventually. But the question is, how many people did not make it out of that school alive today? WSVN discussing this situation that led to him going to the hospital. Let's listen to the local coverage now from Craig Stevens and Len Martinez on the anchor desk.
mile or so away at the school campus itself. The sheriff was explaining to us that to the best of their knowledge, the kids who had been barricaded inside had been evacuated and being moved to another location where they could reunite with their parents, but they still are canvassing the building in the event there are any students or faculty or staffers who might have been hiding, taking coverage, or perhaps those wounded and unable to leave. So that process is continuing as we speak. On the one end, you have those who have evacuated and they're waiting to meet with their parents or their loved ones and leave the area. But authorities are still going room by room, every nook, every cranny, every closet, every space in that fairly large campus facility to see if there is anybody who might still be in there wounded or perhaps just unaware of the outcome and they're still in hiding. That could take a little while, so we'll certainly wait to hear back from the sheriff or other authorities as that process continues, and hope, by golly, hope that there aren't others inside because they're injured and they're unable to move.
Yes. That would be a big hope. Superintendent Robert Runcie used the words numerous fatalities, and he said, I believe a teacher or administrator may be involved in those fatalities. We do have sound from a teacher who was in the school at the time who managed to get out. Somebody interviewed this teacher via cell phone. Let's listen.
It was the end of the school day, and the fire alarm went off, and we went to evacuate, as if it was a fire drill, and then we got maybe 15, 20 steps out of the classroom, and we were told that we were on cold red, and we ran back inside to the classroom and got crossed down on the floor, and then we moved into the closet. A friend of mine teaches on in the freshman building, and she said that as she was leaving that there were bodies on the floor. So I don't know.
This is local coverage, and WSVN is a Fox station, and they're affiliates of multiple outlets, just as we have two other affiliates down there. We all sort of cross-pollinate these days, and this happens to be material from the competition. Not that it's a day to think about that sort of thing, and none of us is. I know none of our friends at CNN, and certainly none of mine here at Fox, are focused on anything but what a horrific thing has taken place. We have seen it again and again, and I will never, ever forget, as long as I live, being outside Columbine High School in the early evening as those two men had gone on the rampage there in the cafeteria. And over the week that followed, speaking to children and parents about all that they had just experienced and trying to deal with what was and is to this day, I am 100% confident, their new normal. Young people do not witness what they have witnessed today in Broward County, Florida, without being changed. And it was Craig who said just a moment ago, Craig Stevens, the local anchor there in Miami, had said, we will get through this as a community. We'll do so with the love and comfort of our friends and neighbors and our family, and we'll do so together. But it will not be easy, and it won't. For the young faces who were telling you about what they just experienced a few minutes ago, with adrenaline still running now close to 3 hours after this all happened, when the television cameras and the sirens and the police all go away and they're at home with their families for the next few days. Those who have seen their friends and classmates and potentially teachers and administrators die in front of them at school are forever in a new place. And they will all take comfort in each other and pray that this does not happen again. WSVN's coverage continues. It's 14 minutes past 5 o'clock in South Florida. This happened just short of 3 hours ago, and certainly all of South Florida aware by now.
Children inside of West Glades Middle who were watching this all unfold. These middle school students, they could see from their windows, they could see SWAT team running inside of the high school, running outside, and they were just so terrified while just the most horrific event was happening right next door to them. So now parents walking, this is about less than half a mile towards West Glades Middle School, walking to get to their loved one, hug their child so tight as they grab them knowing that their child is okay. But there are many parents out there who are not going to be able to say that tonight.
We just don't know how many just yet. We know that since Columbine in 1999, there have been 25 fatal active school shooting incidents at elementary and high schools in America. Columbine was April the 20th, 1999, 13 fatalities and more than 20 wounded. Also in 99, Deming High School in New Mexico, Buell Elementary School in Michigan. In the year 2000, Lake Worth Community Middle School, where one was killed, in Florida. In 2001, Santana High School in California. In 2001, Red Lion Junior High School. In 2003, Ricori High School in Minnesota. In 2005, Red Lake High School in Minnesota. In 2005, Campbell County Comprehensive High School in Tennessee. In 2006, Essex Elementary School in Vermont. In 2006, Weston High School in Wisconsin. In 2006, West Nickel Mines School in Pennsylvania. In 2011, Millard South High School in Nebraska. In 2012, Chardon High School in Ohio. In 2012, Sandy Creek Elementary School in Connecticut, where 26 elementary school students and others were killed. In 2013, Sparks Middle School in Nevada. In 2013, Arapahoe High School in Arapahoe, Colorado. In 2014, Reynolds High School in Oregon. In 2014, Marysville High School in Washington. In 2016, Independent High School in Arizona. In 2016, Townville Elementary School in North Carolina. In 2017, North Park Elementary School in California. In 2017, Freeman High School in Washington. In 2018, Marshall County High School, just 3 weeks ago in Kentucky. And today, Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Broward County, Florida, in the town of Parkland, where many students and teachers and administrators have died today. We do not yet know how many. The 25th fatal school shooting since Columbine High School in America. And coverage continues on WSVN Now.
That school, again, it's less than a half a mile. They have this area all closed off. As soon as the shooting happened, they closed this road. They closed the other road leading to the other side of this complex, not allowing anyone inside. But, you know, there are many parents out there who still have not heard from their child, and those parents are trying to figure out if their child is on that list. And many people calling and texting and asking, have you heard if my daughter is okay? Have you heard if my son is okay? We're getting many of those phone calls out here. We just don't know. It's too soon. We don't have any victims' names as of yet. We do know many people were transported, but again, these are just parents trying to pick up their West Blades Middle School students out here on this road, Holmberg Road. They were stuck across the street and they were not allowed to come, but now they've opened up this street, and you know, parents frantic out here. You can see them on the phones. There were so many people out here using their cell phones that there was no service. So many parents could not get in touch with their child for several hours. They were not allowing, they couldn't get through. So these parents now finally in touch with their child, and they're now being allowed to go grab their child. But again, just as this scene unfolded from 2:30 when that bell rang at that school, and then shortly after gunshots rang out, this is now the very sad aftermath. The chaos is now turning into a very raw reality for these people as they start to understand the gravity of the situation, what has actually happened here in Parkland. We do know several people, multiple fatalities, according to Superintendent Robert Runcie out here. A horrific scene at this school for parents thousands of parents and family members, people trying to figure out where their loved ones are and were, and still many people who have not spoken to their child are still in the middle of this hell, trying to find their daughter or son who may still be inside that school and at this point may not be coming out alive. So very sad scene out here. Back to you guys on the desk.
Well, yes, our hearts go out to those parents who maybe have not heard from their children. It's worth repeating. On the left-hand side is a live picture of the parents being allowed to actually walk to West Glades Middle School, which was also put on immediate lockdown when the shooting broke out. And, of course, to the right is an aerial picture of the situation still going on at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School there in Parkland, where parents are being reunited with their children. This is a story that's made headlines since it happened, 2:35 all around the country. Sheriff Scott Israel said that he has spoken to Governor Scott, and Governor Scott is on his way to South Florida. He said he also has spoken to President Trump.
We're also getting some reaction to this from congressional lawmakers and others. Let's bring Jeff Lennox into the conversation. He is that. He's at the Satellite Center for us. Jeff?
Yeah, Craig Lynn, like you mentioned, from our national leaders on down to state and local, we have a lot of reaction coming in as our leaders assess this ongoing situation, this school shooting in Parkland. Again, like you mentioned, President Donald Trump, tweeting out his sympathies to the victims and their families. We know Governor Rick Scott is on his way to South Florida. He has been briefed on the situation. Also, Senator Marco Rubio tweeting out a few moments ago that he has been briefed by Broward County Sheriff Scott Israel. And again, now we are getting some on-camera sound from Senator Bill Nelson in Washington talking about this situation. He has also been briefed on the very latest developments coming in out of Parkland. Here's what he has had to say.
This is a bad day for Florida and for the country. And you can imagine the grief of parents right now not knowing, as well as the students not knowing.
That was Senator Bill Nelson.
And a tweet here from the president that we shared with you earlier. My prayers and condolences to the families and victims of the terrible Florida shooting. No child, teacher, or anyone else should ever feel unsafe in an American school. It's our understanding that the FBI is working in connection with the local authorities, the Broward Sheriff's Office, the Parkland Police, and the Coral Springs Police. These are some of the first pictures that were coming. Well, actually, this is the suspect being taken into custody just about an hour and a half or so after all of this began. I'm sure many of you, if you're following this on social media or beyond, are seeing the name of this suspect. But it's our policy not to release that sort of thing until the authorities release it to us. The reason for that is sometimes a person of interest, a suspect, turns out to be something else entirely. It happens. And so we'll wait for authorities. While WSVN has a reporter on scene at the hospital with an update there, let's listen in.
With more on where the suspect was apprehended a short time ago. Franklin?
Yeah, this right here is the Wyndham Lakes area, and the suspect was captured beyond these houses right here on the backside of those houses down there. Police, people who saw it all are, as you can imagine, shaken up. Now, the suspect was taken and arrested to North Broward. Let me show you some video cell phone video from a viewer who saw the arrest firsthand. And now he, of course, pulled up to it as it was happening. He caught the video of the suspect being arrested and taken to the ground, the suspect in that maroon shirt. He's telling me the person who shot that video, of course, you can imagine, can't believe this happened in a place he lived. And the question they're wondering is, why was that person, that suspect, here in this community? Does he live here? Does he know somebody here? Why was he here? So that's the big question they're all wondering. And, you know, it's a sigh of relief that he's arrested. Of course, people here happy that he's gone. And if you live near the Wyndham Lakes area, you cannot access this community. You cannot come in at all. You can leave, but you can't come back in. There's now traffic surrounding this entire area. And again, that suspect arrested hours ago. He left, apparently when he left the school, he came here, he was tackled by police. Residents who live in this Wyndham Lakes area saw it firsthand, caught that cell phone video. Let's take you to the person who caught that video and get his reaction. Take a listen.
Well, that's scary. That's scary. I mean, definitely, the fact that having a shooting on the community like this one, it is just shocking. Now, when it comes to just being so close to your house, it's like you never really know where and what's going to happen. We're around 10, holding them down, and more coming over. They were jumping out of the vehicles, making sure that the guy was down, and of course it was congratulations everyone there for that they did. They were shaking hands, etc. But there was no any hitting to the guy in the ground. There was no abuse given to the guy. I mean, nothing of that happened. The guy was just scuffed. There was face there, as the video shows.
Again, you're hearing him say that police seem to be congratulating each other, happy they caught that suspect. He says it didn't appear that the suspect was hurt, and it didn't appear that he tried to resist police. Again, that suspect arrested here in the Wyndham Lakes area in Coral Springs. Again, didn't seem to be hurt, but he was taken to Broward North in an ambulance. Residents who, of course, as you can imagine, not believing that this is where that person was arrested. We'll try to get you more sound and more reaction from folks who live here. For now, that's it live in Coral Springs. Franklin White, 70.
And thanks to you and the rest of the team there, Craig Stevens and Lynn Martinez, Ralph Rayburn up in the chopper, and all the rest, and we'll get back to them. I want to get to our own Phil Keating, who's based in South Florida and is now live with us on scene in Parkland. Phil, to you.
Hi, Shepard. We are just about a half-mile south of the high school right now, and as you have mentioned throughout the coverage of the past 3 hours, the law enforcement community, led by the Broward County Sheriff's Department, really responded rapidly and had this person of interest suspect matching the description of the black hat, the burgundy shirt, and the black pants in custody roughly a mile and a half away from the school, which we believe is where he had been living. According to the school superintendent of Broward County and the sheriff, this was not a current student, but an 18-year-old. And the governor, Rick Scott, is on his way from Tallahassee down here. He has spoken and remained in contact with law enforcement down here. He has already expressed his grief for the families of those affected. We still don't know exactly the full number of injured and fatalities. However, the Broward County Superintendent, Robert Runcie, did say that there are numerous fatalities on a horrible, horrible day. And just moments ago, the Broward County Sheriff, Scott Israel, said that this is an absolutely, quote, catastrophic day. Not anything really can be worse than this. Where we are right now, this is the Sawgrass Expressway above us. This is a major expressway that wraps around the western side of the Broward County metro area. Just behind me, roughly half a mile, is the high school proper. This is as far north as anybody can go here on Coral Springs Way. So right now, all around the school in all of these areas, and of course it is rush hour, which is on a daily basis horrendous in Miami-Dade and Broward counties. People are stuck. Parents were at a nearby elementary school as well as a hotel trying to rendezvous with their students, their kids, their boys and girls. You saw the scenes of the kids running from the school as law enforcement released groups of 8, groups of 20, all of them running with their backpacks on, hands up, sprinting really, in terror and with the aim of getting to safety, all of which was totally reminiscent from the Columbine High School massacre back in the 90s, which, Shepard, both you and I were there and covered that as well. And one of the worst parts of the school shootings is for the parents responding panicked, looking for their loved ones, their sons and daughters, trying to find them. And in those minutes, those long minutes, sometimes hours of not being able to find their son or daughter, it is truly a parent's absolute worst nightmare. So law enforcement is all over this area, traffic at a standstill, and the governor's on his way down here, and we are expecting at some point the sheriff of Broward County to soon get in front of the cameras. But this has been a very rapid investigation. According to the sheriff, like I mentioned, 18-year-old, not a student currently, certainly could have been a former student. There had been some students who mentioned that they knew who they thought he was, but he matched the description, and the investigation continues here on a horrible day in Broward County school history. Shep.
Phil Keating, our South Florida-based correspondent, who's live there for us on scene this afternoon, and live pictures coming from first above the school and now certainly from the centers all around as parents work to find their kids. For those of you watching on local Fox stations or My Network television stations across America, we're going to return you to your local program, in some cases your local news. Our coverage will continue on Fox News Channel, on satellite and cable for the better part of the next 30 minutes before Special Report with Brett Baer. I'm Shepard Smith. Fox News in New York.
This has been a Fox News Special Report.